All right, thank you for staying with the Daybreak at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Hashtag Daybreak. I see a lot of your feedback. We'll sample some of them as we go through this discussion on State of the Nation. We're talking about issues around the political divide across all the political platforms. And Honorable Tienda, before we went for the break, there was something that was raised by Honorable Maura there, that if this passes, does it apply retrospectively? What happens to the term of the president?
Thank you. Trevor, let me debunk three things. But before that, as I told my friend Senator Maura last week, I think the conversation he's just had demonstrates just that.
Yeah.
There's utter confusion in their camp, which I'm still yet to know what it's called. I don't know whether it's Tanga, whether it's UDA, whether it's Jubilee Asili, whatever. Yeah. But that camp that is led by the deputy president, they are utterly confused in terms of what to do with BBI. They say they are not opposed to it. And thereafter, they say everything to persuade people to oppose it. So you don't know what to call that. I cannot just, it's the height of confusion. First, about the term of the president and the term of parliament, there is no such issue as Isaac Maura is raising. There is no confusion, there is no possibility of any conversation. The term of the president and the term of parliament is clear in the current constitution. That term is not touched on at all by the BBI, and therefore the issue of any confusion arising would not be there. Only those who want to mislead Kenyans and therefore think the way some of them have been saying that, you know, if you pass BBI, President Uhuru Kenyatta might continue or Parliament might continue. There is no basis for that at all. It is total misinformation. Secondly, the question of the referendum question. Can it be multiple? Can it be one? A clear reading of Article 257 suggests that amendment by popular initiative can take two forms. It can take the first form of suggestions, proposals, in which case they can be multiple. You can have an idea and you want to test Kenyans in terms of referendum. Should we maintain the multi-party system or we go back to one party? That is one question. Then you can also ask them, do we maintain the presidential system or we go for parliamentary system? You can do that, in which case there can be multiple questions. But Article 257 also allows and in fact encourages any person or group of persons who are bringing an amendment by popular initiative to formulate it into a bill. That is what the BBI did. It took the various ideas and instead of leaving them at the idea level, it formulated it into one bill. Once it's formulated into one bill, there can only be one referendum question.
Yeah.
You either vote yes or no. If you vote no, you reject everything that comes with that proposal. If you vote yes, you accept everything that comes with it. If there are any ideas in there that you like, but there are also ideas that you don't like, you must therefore decide, is it that the things you like are more than the ones you dislike? If so, then you vote yes. If the answer is no, then you vote no, and you leave another day to start another process. Thirdly, is this question that is sometimes spoken to, and Speaker Wahome has spoken to this, the 35%. I've had some people say that how can you be talking of 35% when even the 15% the government is not giving?
Yeah.
The answer must be as follows. One, the fact of the government not releasing the 15% to the counties is not a factor of the Constitution. It's a factor of the administration at that time. It is conceivable that when a different administration comes, as we anticipate to come in the next election, when we say 35%, we will give 35%. Because in any event, if that argument was to be taken to its logical conclusion, then you'd be saying that because they are not even giving that 15%, then scrap even the 15% from the Constitution. You see, that is the logical conclusion to that argument. And at the same time, they would be saying that, look, take corruption, for example. The Constitution talks of ending corruption. Has corruption ended? It hasn't. So, should we say that the efforts in the BBI, in this document, to sustain the fight against corruption are unnecessary because corruption has not ended? A constitution is an aspiration. It aspires to what ought to be. And therefore, 35% is what ought to be. And any other administration might probably formulate it. But lastly, you know, for those who oppose, the BBI, and they cannot put their hand on what exactly they're opposed to, they then bring these things of what we've called wheelbarrownomics and bicyclenomics, you know, and all those things. But they really don't tell you that, look, if it was up to us and we were formulating a draft constitution, amendment to a draft amendment to the constitution, how they will put those wheelbarrownomics and bicyclenomics in the constitution is what they don't tell you, because they can't. The constitution as it is now and in the BBI endeavors to address those very inequalities that make some people feel that they are disadvantaged. Yeah. The inequities in terms of counties, in terms of allocation of money, in terms of the socioeconomic rights. So it's all hogwash. Yeah. It's all general propaganda meant to mislead. But if you look at the document, there's no proper ground that they can stand on.
Okay. Honorable Wahome, you know, as the County Assembly's Forum chairperson, how many of them have you spoken to who will most likely oppose or support? There are 47 of them. Will they get the 24 or will they not? And what are their views? What will happen to those who are dissenting, the dissenting
voices? Yes, what I would want to say is that generally, we had a governing council meeting. And I said 3 county assemblies, all the county assemblies were represented by 3 members. Okay. And the general consensus, and we also called the leadership of all the county assemblies. That is the speaker, the deputy speaker, the majority leader, the minority leader, and the majority and minority whips. And the position we took is that we had no issues with the BBI.
There was no dissenting voice?
There was no dissenting voice.
Out of all the 47?
Yes. And we held that meeting at Crown Plaza Hotel. Okay. And the issue was, we agreed that we are going to close our eyes on everything outside devolution and the interest of the assemblies. And that all our issues were captured in the BBI report. And I've mentioned them. Yeah. Our 6 issues were all captured in the BBI report. So actually we agreed that all the issues that required to be in the constitutional amendment bill, they are there. There are other issues which require registration. Like now, if the County Assembly's fund is established, we shall require an amendment of the Public Finance Management Act and also the regulations to ensure that the requirement to take our requisitions through the CC Finance are removed, because they are now a requirement under the law. But because the Constitution is superior to the registration, Parliament will have no other option but to follow the Constitution and amend the registration accordingly. There are also other issues which are purely administrative, where we shall require constitutional commissions and independent offices to do some things so that also cater for the interest of the assemblies of this country. So as far as we are concerned, in terms of constitutional issues, they are well addressed there. Okay. The other legislative and administrative issues, we are going to follow them up.
So out of these 47, you foresee a unanimous vote? How many counties do you think will support?
The County Assemblies Forum gives counsel and gives proposals on how things should go. Like during the Punguza Musigo, you found me come out very clearly and tell the assemblies to consider rejecting Punguza Musigo because it was a bad law for this country. It only identified the problems but never offered any solutions. And we advised them to reject. And actually 45 out of 47 rejected it. So for now, we said that this is a good law as far as devolution and assemblies are concerned. And therefore, we shall now leave it to the constitutional mandate and freedom to make the final decision.
Okay. Yeah. Honorable Mwaura.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Trevor. Let me just highlight some things that my good brother Otiende Amola said. And by the way, you know, he speaks good English. But I heard him saying iniquities. I'm sure he wanted to say inequities, actually, because iniquities actually mean. But let me say this. The issue of wheelbarrownomics, you know, is basically, you know, I'm the one who has popularized that word there. That it's about a bottom-up approach, spring up instead of trickle-down, because this trickle-down effect, where people share the spoils when everybody else has made the kill, is what is aiding the economy. When we talk about the hustle nation and wheelbarrownomics, you may want to wonder whether really that is true, because we have about 14 million small businesses. About 6 of them are properly organized, and everybody across this table will agree that it's very difficult for people to formalize. But then about 8 million are like hand to mouth. Even our collection, Trevor, maybe Kenyans don't know this, we collect money, then it is shared around every Thursday. So actually also our economy is a hand to mouth. So indeed, we are a hustler nation. We are a hustler nation because 85% of these jobs, these businesses are the ones that provide for jobs. But then let's come to the economics. Because you see, I had you know, my brother Otienda saying that it is an administrative issue. It's not an administrative issue. You know, you put your money where your mouth is. Currently, we are able to collect about 130 billion a month against an expenditure framework of 206 billion. So we have a deficit of 78 billion, of which 26 billion is supposed to be going to counties, and it is not, you know, accruing. Part of the reason why, you know, counties are complaining is because there are serious issues of cash flow management. And if you look at our debt to GDP ratio, we're even being told right now, no, Trevor, to increase the debt to ceiling to 12 trillion, which will be way over and above our worth, you know, our net present value, of about our present value, not present value of about, you know, nominal GDP of 9.8 trillion. What does that mean? That we will have borrowed way over. And the only country that I have come across that has done so is Japan at 239%, and they manufacture cars. They are it's an industrial economy. Even America, with a $24 trillion economy, they have gone up to 20 trillion. What am I trying to say? We are doing very badly. As the third largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa, worth about $100 billion, as I've said, if we continue this way, we're actually mortgaging ourselves. What do we need to do? We need to do serious fiscal consolidation. And I think also revenue is critical for countries to survive on their own, so they don't just you know, rely on equitable share. And for example, the Ministry of Health has got 17 payrolls. 17 payrolls, Trevor, at the national level. Because what happens is that when we devolved, there was what we call empire building by civil servants and factotums, where, you know, instead of seeding money, 98 billion at the Ministry of, that's why you hear the COVID-19 billionaires, the FS scandal. So we need a government that is seriously going to trim down on expenditure. Seriously. You know, you can argue about Parliament, but the Parliament doesn't spend even 1% of our budget. But how do you do 1.5 trillion collection, Trevor, against a 3 trillion budget? You get the point. Yeah. So that then, even if whoever becomes president, we don't have serious fiscal restructuring and budget consolidation, we still end up with the same challenge. And Kenyans must have a serious conversation about the economy. As Bill Clinton said, it's the economy stupid. The reason why BBI is facing resistance is not because there are no good ideas, it's because people have no money in their pockets. So when we are having this conversation, it has to be both administratively, the letter and the spirit of the law. Otherwise, we run into headwinds that otherwise nobody has, you know, would want to run into. And I want to say this. We are having a national conversation on this issue. And if it would be good, and I would really want to urge His Excellency the President, to rise above, like now the meeting in Mount Kenya, for the Mount Kenya leaders, and I think you are coming to that, only a section of leaders have been invited. I personally have not been invited. No, I've not been invited.
Would you attend if you're invited?
But I have not been invited, sir.
But if you're invited, will you attend?
Because for the sake and the interest of the country, yes, but it has not happened. So you see, when you have, a choir that only wants to sing a certain song, then that is the reason why you don't find people going together. And you know, leaders must go with their flock. They must go with the people. If they go ahead, that's why you end up seeing in Mount Kenya region, nearly 80% of members of parliament don't make it back. Because then you become part of an administrative structure that does not resonate with the people. And I think Senator Matangi put it very clearly. Our Central Kenya people may not even tell you what they think about you. I have witnessed that clearly. So what am I trying to say in short? That BBI can be given a chance. I think personally, as Honorable Otienda Amolo, I beg to differ with you about the provisions of Article 257. In fact, in the last parliament, I wrote to the speaker to develop the referendum law. You are the vice chair. I'm sure maybe now that it is put in place. There is a possibility, and the AG has confirmed, that we can actually do multiple questions. And this would help us so that we have a neat way out of this quagmire, so that at least Kenyans can take that which is okay. For example, and I still want to reiterate this, the issue of having seats at the top there. It may be unpopular with some people may think it is okay. The issue of the number of seats in parliament may be beneficial to places like even Kilifi. So why don't we want to give Kenyans options? They have gone to school. They have actually done multiple choices in KCPE. In fact, they were actually using pencils to do so. Yeah. They can do it. Why not?
Okay. One more time. You are away when we started this discussion, and there's a question that has been raised by Honorable Mwaura, why not give people multiple choices then?
Well, maybe to start with, just to clarify what I said earlier, and leading to that question of why not give people multiple choice questions. You know, Trevor, if you remember when BBI was launched in Bomas, and then there was a session in between there where people got different groupings, got an opportunity to air their views. And remember then retreats and meetings were held, various groups converged to ask, have our interests been factored? And even Parliament itself. We had a big meeting in Naivasha. And you find that, for example, remember the pastoralists group came together, they went and met their secretariat, and they had their issues included. People with disabilities, Senator Mwaura was there, they brought their issues. And largely, almost everybody who had issues, including all the issues that were raised then by the Deputy President, on the floor in Bomas. Somehow, I believe then, you know, it was in the spirit of good faith, to ensure that everybody's views are in that document. You find that, indeed, in public meetings then, I remember in Western Kenya, the Deputy President said that he sees that quite a number of issues have then been included in that document. What am I saying? That reverting back to the old argument, and then you come to this question of multiple choice questions, you find that at the close of that door, everybody believed and said and acknowledged that our issues are in there. But then what happens the following day? You find that we have now reverted to the default position of whether are we going to vote for the document or not. And new reasons are advanced as to why it is not a good document. What we must acknowledge from my point of view is this, that first, Kenyans are lethargic to the document for the time being, for reasons not in the document, or for reasons not about the quality of the document. Of course, there are factors that are natural about the effects of COVID-19. People are hurting economically, and so on. Yeah. Those are issues that would be considered. But by and large, Trevor, and if we are going to get anywhere with this document, we must remember this, that if the document has got to pass, the key thing has got to be political management of the process. To see the document either being appreciated for what it is and then getting it passed, and address those other issues. Finally, whether you have got multiple choice questions, whether you've got one question to that document, as long as the political atmosphere is poisoned, as long as it has not been delinked and people educated civilly to understand that when you go to the ballot box, don't be asking whether if you vote this way, you'll be favoring Raila Odinga, or whether you vote the other way, you're going to be favoring William Ruto. Yeah. As long as those are the questions, or whether you are for you know, the pro-Uhuru Kenyatta regime, Ayuki Eleweke or Tanga Tanga, if those are going to be the issues that will be in the air as it is right now, then you're burning breath and wasting it when you're talking about multiple choice questions or this other solution. At the end of the day, I believe that what even ourselves, as we go to our meeting in Mount Kenya region on Saturday.
Yeah, which is where we're going to in the next.
Yes. I think part of the issues that we are going to have to be addressing in management of the process on the way forward is how do we get to our people's minds and their hearts and tell them that you can look at this document objectively, that it is a document that addresses this and that issue about the region, and this is how you deal with our political issues. And I think the way forward to deal with it is first to clear the political air. Okay. But by letting all and sundry know that, for example, in 2022, this is how we are going to approach the politics of 2022. As long as you put it in the back burner, and you don't let people ventilate and also let them know what would be the possible way forward, then you find that it is in that atmosphere that people still want to speculate, and they're still susceptible to misinformation, that this is about this and this will happen. If we take the approach that people will be first informed that as a region, as a people, how we want to approach 2022 is this. This is our position about the candidature of A. This is our position about the candidature of candidate B. But for me, and what I would be advancing, is what are our interests as the people of Mount Kenya in the coming dispensation.
Yeah.
If then all those issues are addressed, then people can look at the BBI process and passing it in a different light. If we do not do that during our discussions on Saturday, then what's likely to happen is a continuation of the atmosphere that we are in right now, whereby it strongly feels that if you vote for the BBI, you are voting for pro-Raila and pro-Uhuru. And if you vote against the BBI, you will be supporting William Ruto and his views. That's how the atmosphere is like in there right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's what needs to be cleared for people to be able to look at.
Have you been invited? Because Senator Mora says he hasn't been invited.
Well, you know, personally, I want to say this. When the meeting was announced, it was announced publicly. And it has been announced as a meeting for Mount Kenya leaders. Senator Mora comes from Mount Kenya. He comes from Ruiru. And he's a leader, for that matter. He sits in Parliament and is nominated by the party called Jubilee. There is no other qualifications that he needs as a leader to know that he is welcome to that particular meeting. And any other member of Parliament or any other leader.
So
from
there are no
region.
letters being given now, nothing.
Every time when we have gone to that meeting, you don't need a card. You don't swipe a card to enter.
Yeah.
And we've been there, this will be the third time. When you arrive there, they just ask who is there, open the back window, who is sitting there, that is Senator Omatangi, please enter, we know you. You are a leader. And who is there, you enter. So I want to persuade my counterman and my fellow leader, Senator Mora, that and any other person and who are around there, come. It is open. Okay. You know, I would actually take the opportunity to tell every person organizing and who will be manning the gate. It will be a sad day if you turned away somebody who is a leader at that entrance and said that you are not welcome. Everybody who comes from that region, being a regional leaders meeting, is welcome to that meeting. Right. Come here, your views. Okay. And then we'll be able to persuade you that this is how we want our region to be. And let me just underline it this way as I'm finalized with your permission. That I wanted to be understood by the leaders of Mount Kenya region and the people of Mount Kenya region, that the purpose of that meeting is to go and address the issues and the interests of our people. Okay. Yeah, I mean, how are we going to move forward? It is not about that this guy is a bad guy and that's a good guy. We are going to talk about how can we advance our community, our people. How can we best sit with other Kenyans? Okay. What do we need to do to be a part of the larger community of Kenyan people and be good neighbors with other Kenyans and have our interests at the table. That's our discussion. Yeah.
On a light note, I think when Senator Matangi says that the invite to the meeting was out there in public, and Senator Mora says he's not been invited. You know, it's possible. You know, he was busy in Githurai. So the invite might have come when he was busy doing what he does best. Anyway, back to the issues. First of all, let me just speak to what Senator Mora spoke to a little earlier in terms of borrowing. We have said this, and if you look at the Hansard, some of us repeatedly since we came to Parliament, lamented on the borrowing that this administration was doing. And if you look at that Hansard, I think even of the Senate, I strongly suspect that because I know those we are within the National Assembly, but I strongly suspect that Senator Maura, among others, were among those, and even Senator Matangi here, who are drumming up support to approve the debt ceiling and to approve specific borrowings. Yeah. And so when they then now later come as if they just woke up or dropped in this country and say, oh, we are over borrowing, I mean, that's taking all of us for fools. Because borrowing is not something that happens within an hour. It has been systematic for the last 8 years. So there's nothing new there. And it's not an issue to now bring when you are talking of allocating money to the counties. Because a lot of that money that is borrowed then disappear into pockets. You'd rather it even goes to the counties. And so when we also talk about how much money is available, you must remember that the greatest single expender in this country is an item called corruption. A lot of money disappears into corruption. And a lot of this money that is used to incite the youths and all is not gotten through legitimate means. It is gotten through corruption. So when you then contain corruption, you will be able to contain the borrowing, you will be able to avail money even to the counties. Secondly, and this is just to speak very briefly on this, on the question of multiple questions. First is to indicate that we long had a discussion on this as the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee and also the CIOC. And each of us had developed a different referendum bill. But we were able to sit down and harmonize it. And once we are back in Parliament, I think next week or next week but one, we should be able to endorse it. And we were all agreed that there can be no such thing as multiple referendum questions where a bill has been formulated. It could be there where you want to gauge the thoughts. Say if today we wanted to decide, should we go parliamentary or presidential, and you just want Kenyans' view on that, and you also want their view, should we have nominated women or not, like that, then you could go the multiple. But as long as it's an amendment, then it would be a single question. And the reason is simple. You know, a constitution is like a good suit. It must only be done by one person in a synchronized and harmonized manner. You cannot have one tailor making one sleeve, the other tailor making another sleeve, the other making the buttons, the other making, I don't know, the flaps, and you hope that when it comes out, it's one good document. It cannot, because it can also be self-contradictory. When you take multiple referendum questions, you can end up with questions that are contradictory. Let me give you a quick example. For example, now, the proposal is to increase the allocation to 35%. But that 35%, 5% has been ring-fenced for the wards. So when you approve the 35%, you implicitly approve the 5%. Now, if instead you put that question that, do you approve the increment to 35%? Then you put a different question. Do you approve the Ward Development Fund at 5%? If the 35 fails and the 5% fails, then you're in a constitutional quagmire because it was factored in the 35% in terms of the draft. If you ask the question, should we increase the numbers in Parliament? And then you asked a different question. Should we now have, say, the leader of opposition in Parliament? Or should we have a prime minister in Parliament? If you reject the idea of increasing the number of members of Parliament, but you approve having the leader of official opposition in Parliament, that again is a contradiction because only that increment then factors in these new seats that we're having. So you cannot have those kind of multiple questions. You would end up with a document that would be a mongrel, not a constitution.
Okay.
As to the Mount Kenya question, well, me, I can only speak little about it. All I can say is that, as I explained here last week, the question of tying passage of BBI to the candidacy of Raila Amolo Odinga for presidency is a misplaced question for a very simple reason. If you reject BBI because you are not happy with the candidacy of Raila Amolo Odinga for president, you've still done nothing because that seat of president will still be there in 2022. Okay. And whether BBI passes or is rejected will not stop him from going for that seat. Okay. So the BBI debate must be had in isolation. Yeah. You know, to the question of the presidency.
So you're not attending the Mount Kenya meeting as amicus? As amicus,
if I'm invited as amicus, I should be able to go and educate them on this.
Well, what should be the priorities of the president now when he faces the Mount Kenya meeting? Because that is where we're heading.
Actually, I would say that, as it has been said by the Senator for Kiambu, we know that we fall within the definition of the leaders of Mount Kenya region, and therefore, even before the formal invitation, we felt invited for that meeting. And actually, as the speakers of the Mount Kenya, the 10 counties, we have already communicated to our members that they have the president's invitation. Because after it was pronounced, and we know MCAs are leaders, and the speakers are leaders, we decided that we are properly invited and we shall be attending. I think the priorities for the president in the Mount Kenya meeting is that we might have divergent views as people of Mount Kenya, but we have our priorities. And we should concentrate more on what brings us together than what divides us. Because when we talk about coffee, all of us in Mount Kenya, that is an issue that is so dear to ourselves. When we talk about tea, when we talk about potatoes, when we talk about milk, when we talk about education, there are those issues that we should galvanize ourselves around those issues. So that as much as we might have our own political divergence in terms of political thinking and the political alignments, but then we should, as Mount Kenya people, concentrate more on what is more beneficial to all of us as the people of Mount Kenya. And I think this is the message that the president is bringing to Mount Kenya. And I think because the president is even more informed about the particular benefits for the people of Mount Kenya, is that we will be working around galvanizing all of us around those issues that touch on all of us, and so that we can be able to move together as a region. We are able to speak in one voice as a region because we are speaking on issues that are dear to all of us and to our people. Mainly, Mount Kenya is not as much politicized as people would think. When people of Mount Kenya are settled economically, and they know they have security of the education of their children, and they know that there will be a meal on the table, and that there is hope for tomorrow, Mount Kenya is settled, and we are not difficult people. And we are going to be able to even, and I believe this is another subject that the president is going to talk to very dearly, about building cohesion in this country. So that we are not seen as Mount Kenya people. We are seen as Mount Kenya people who are one people but are ready to work together with other people in this country. And I think that is a very dear subject to the president, about the unity of this country and the cohesion of the people of this country, and now the economic development.
How would you want this meeting to play out? Because the last time this happened in that exact same spot, it was in 2019, where Uhuru was meeting the leaders in the backyard of a theory that the Mount Kenya region was being starved of development by Jubilee, and most people came out and said that it was more of a dress down rather than a meeting.
I think mostly when we go to Sagana, it is the president coming to talk to the leaders. He has already listened to all of us. Wamatangi is talking from Kiambu, Maura is talking from Ruiru, I'm talking from Nyandaro. The president is already aware of what is happening in Mount Kenya region. He knows about what are the shortcomings and what people are complaining about and what people are happy about. So normally when we go to Sagana, it's the president giving us feedback about the issues that we have raised. Most of the issues you'll find that some of them are even misplaced. They are not the reality. The other issues you'll find that they might not be on the priority list. But that is the time when we meet our leader. Although he is the leader of this nation, but he is also our leader in the Mount Kenya, that is giving feedback to us about our concerns.
Senator Mora, I want you to respond to this soundbite by the president ahead of that meeting on Saturday. Then you'll also tell us why you feel you've not been invited, while the rest are saying that it was a public invitation. Listen to what the president said.
Sitaki nizidi hapo kwa sababu nikiendelea kuongea nitaanza kuguza siasa. Nikiwa kwa polisi sitaki kuguza siasa. Hiyo tutaongea huko tukiwa nje ya hii mlango. Kwa sababu siasa inatakikana tuongee na tutaongea, msijali. Unajua wengine wanaangalia, wengine wanasema huyu anaenda. Atafanya nini? Niwakumbushe hata kama anaenda bado wako na siku kadhaa ya kuguruma kama simba. Bado kuna siku imebaki. Kwa hivyo msione kuna uwanja ambaye ni vacant. There is no vacancy. Ama ni namna gani wenzangu? Si ni hivyo?
Senator Moro, what do you make of that statement?
You know, the people of Kenya gave the president the mandate for a full term of 5 years, the second term, the first term and the second term, and for sure, he's in charge. I mean, there is no any vacuum in leadership. He remains to be the one who is a symbol of national unity, and many Kenyans love him for that. I think, for me, I fully agree with that, and I'm sure that as time goes by, you know, it will be evidently clear that that is the case. Maybe the challenge is always that you know, as the president is coming to his end, there's always that idea of lame duck. And it started being, you know, conversed about way back in 2018, not even in 2019, January, I remember. You know, a press conference organized at Serena about those issues. So, but anyway, allow me, Trevor, to speak about some issues that may have been raised. Number one is just to tell my friend Otiende, as early as 2014, I'm on record in the National Assembly, you know, that I opposed the raising of the debt ceiling from 3 to 4 trillion, 4.5 led by Aden Duale. I was a member of the Budget and Operations Committee because I did this in my postgraduate studies, and I know that the best percentage of debt to GDP ratio is 20 to 35%. So it is actually academic. And also in the Senate, I've been the Vice Chairman of Finance and Budget Committee. In fact, Senator Matangi is the one who replaced me in that committee when I moved on to another responsibility. And in fact, that time, Mutula Kilonzo and Pogisha are the ones who were chairing that debt ceiling raising. I opposed it very clearly. It's on record. So I cannot apportion that blame. I have been very public about public debt. But also, I'm very surprised, Trevor, because you see, Otiende, they are speaking in both ends of the mouth. So they want to be with Uhuru, but also they are blaming the Jubilee administration for its failure. So, you know, who is the head of the Jubilee administration? So, I mean, you need to decide, because otherwise then it may run into headwinds, especially because ideally if you are playing your role of the leader of opposition or minority, then it would actually help. The issue of multiple questions, I think I want to say that the president said this is a constitutional consensus. And even when you're making apparel, the Asian Tigers have succeeded because they specialize in various parts of the garment, you know, in the spirit of division of labor by Max Weber. So you actually want to do so that you make as many as possible, just like in a supply chain or in a conveyor belt of an industry. So if it is a constitutional consensus, it means that then it is actually you know, a coterie of the proposals of the various interest groups, and so it is actually possible that the wishes of the elite as a consensus may be at variance with the masses. And so it calls for actually having a multiple question. But I think also coming now to the issue of Mount Kenya region, people of Mount Kenya are very industrious. They are very, very organized economically. They form the bulk of the Kenyan economy. You look at the county GDP, what you call GCP now, you'll see how it's contributed by you know, counties in Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru, Eldoret, Kiambu, Nyandarua, actually. Nyandarua does very well, interestingly. I was there the other day, and I saw you have new roads even in Lake Olbolosat there. But then, there is a challenge of our Jubilee communication, and it's good I address it here. Trevor, the problem of Jubilee is that talking down people. You said it. People go to a meeting, it is choreographed. So who will speak on behalf of the Senate? Senator Wamatangi. Who will speak on behalf of the National Assembly? Wambo Ngujiri. Who will speak on behalf of women reps? Sabina Chege. Who will speak on behalf of... So people don't get an opportunity to actually express themselves. And I hope, Honorable Ndegwa Wahome, you are now in good books, you can be allowed to speak. But the challenge that has been there, even when we go to meetings at State House, is that, like the other day, we had a meeting there. And then the president actually asked, can we have questions? Then people say, no questions, no questions. And then, so what is the need of having a meeting where nobody speaks? Because, you know, as I have been told by some of my mentors before, you know, leaders want to speak. We are paid to speak. So when you speak, you ventilate, even if the issue is not resolved, but at least you have been heard. So I really hope that meeting will actually be open to people hearing their divergent views. Even Moses Kuria has confirmed he's not been invited. Usually what happens, we are invited through the county commissioners. So I've not been invited. So Senator Matangi, when you say publicly that it is a public meeting, honestly, I mean, we know how we are invited. So I have not received it as of now. I know MCAs received that yesterday because I got some communication to that effect. So it would be good so that we are seen to be going the same direction. Even when we had a meeting in Naivasha about the BBI sometimes back, some people are left out. And by the way, what is the need? What is so difficult in having people who come and express divergent opinion? They could as well actually be a minority. Why wouldn't you just want to listen to them? Because even a broken clock is correct twice a day. So I really hope that we will not just address you know, issues of Mount Kenya alone. I think we shall address all the issues of Kenyans because A fraction is part of the whole. The challenge of a president is that you may get bedrock support from where you come from, but when you become a president, you must actually rule the whole country, you know, despite where you got support from. So the issues that affect people in Kenya are the same ones that affect people in Luo Nyanza. They're the same people that affect people in Rift Valley. I mean, like, we are a country. By the end of the day, we are a hustler nation. We are people who, you know, are trying to eke out a living, who are trying to make it, who do not have pedigree, who do not have good backgrounds. And so when you address those issues, let them be reverberating across the country.
So until you get that invite, are you saying you're not going to go? Because Honorable Wahome and Wamatangi say they have not also gotten the official invite, but they're going.
No, I don't know about them, but for me, I know how I've been invited before. You see, the Bible says about some people who got themselves at the table, and they were not the ones who were supposed to sit there, so they were told to go back. So I don't want to be embarrassed. You have seen situations where people have been literally physically ejected from meetings, or not even being said hi to. Well, I don't want to be embarrassed, my brother.
Is that likely to happen?
Well, let me, can I start? I'll address it, but let me, can I just say one or two things about the debt? I didn't say anything on it. And Trevor, we can have the discussion on debt with the two approaches, either a political approach or a factual, you know, economist's approach. And I think, or maybe even a blend of the two, depending on how you want to see it in the discussion. But a few facts stand out. One, Trevor, governments the whole world over have no other way of raising money or capital for that matter is either through revenue they collect or debt. The governments don't have businesses to run where they earn profits. They only get money those two ways. Two, if you look at all the economies of most of the big countries, the ones that we pride in and say are examples, start from the U.S. The U.S., I think their debt now is way over almost 140 trillion. I mean, go to countries like Japan, go to the UK. Those countries, if they mention the numbers about their debts, they're humongous, very big. And the important thing to say, you know, so that we give direction to how should our people think about when they hear about debt. You know, debt itself in government or being incurred by government in itself is not a bad thing, because that's how governments raise money. The mistake, the error is in how you service and manage that debt. And of course, there are lots of details that you need to talk about, and because this is not an economics class, we don't want to go into so much details. But if debt is managed correctly, so that you don't end up with a Greece scenario, you know, whereby you have the country shutting down because of debt, then you are well on the right track. I want to say this about our national debt, for that matter. Our national debt, that's what I mean. Not necessarily, because, you know, there's a difference between what our national debt is and what our public debt is. How we've incurred that debt is a key thing to be concerned about. And I think this is where, even moving forward, the president would need to look at. One is, are we looking strictly into the cost of the projects that we're funding? That would be one issue. And then number two, do we have a symphony of concurrence with all the players around in a project that we want to implement? For example, if you use like the SGR for an example, it was an idea that can spur a lot of economic growth when implemented as it has been implemented. But around it are several functionaries and enablers that would need to be bought into the same idea to make it work. For example, immediately when SGR was just commissioned, remember we had stories around in KPA, in the port, whereby corruption and other misdeeds were almost bringing operations to a halt. Yet the SGR starts right at the port, and it is one of the key enablers of making that real. And then come upwards, you find that you come to an inland container depot in Nairobi, which has no sound infrastructure, so that when cargo is brought there, how do you evacuate it quickly and make sure, of course that has been done now. And then thirdly, around it, I'm just giving that example so that people understand what we're talking about. Then thirdly, you look at, for example, like another function like KRA. Are they bought into that idea so that they're able to, they should have in policies and processes in a day that make that idea real? I think those are some of the areas that we need to be looking at when we're incurring debt, so that we make sure that where we invest in infrastructure projects, we would be making sure that then it is sustainable. The last point I would maybe want to make is on that question of public debt. And I remember the other day, I think government was floating bonds, you know, infrastructure bonds. And you want to believe that there is sound thinking in it. You would want to ask yourself, you know, how are these bonds, valued? What period do they last? If you give bonds that have a life of 15 years, then of course you are putting yourself in a catch-22, because you don't know how interest will vary between now and then. If you're getting loans from China or from you know, the European countries, and you get them in foreign currency, and you're trading or implementing your projects in Kenya, what will happen if it is a 20-year debt to interest rates, and you cannot print dollars to go and pay those loans? I mean, I think those are pertinent issues that the government will be asking itself. I would summarize it this way. At the end of the day, debt is debt. If in your house, Trevor, you have a debt ceiling that you have broken through of your salary, you know, and your wife's salary combined, then there's a point at which you'd get alarmed, and you'd be saying, if we go beyond what my salary is and yours, then if we don't manage things well, we might go hungry. I think, or rather we may be auctioned. I think that is just generally what we'll be looking at, but we cannot condemn as long as there's proper application of that money that has been acquired, as long as there's visionary planning and ensuring that those projects work. I think at the end of the day, would be growing the nation. Lastly is on this issue of Mount Kenya. Let me touch on that, because that's a question you had asked earlier. And I believe verily that we are not going to the meeting, and we have always done that when we go there. We are not going there to just you know, sing a song of yes we are, and yes we say so, and we are going there to brainstorm. And divergent views have always been welcome. If you have an idea, bring in the idea. If you have a view, bring in that view. And definitely, the process, which I don't have to detail here, when we get in there, you find that leaders have got an opportunity to speak. But you see, you're inviting more than 5,000 people in one sitting. And so not everyone can speak in that particular forum. A few will get an opportunity to hear their views. But what I would want to encourage, and even responding to what my good friend and colleague has said, Senator Mwaura, and all those others that are within Mount Kenya region. You know, when you come there, come with an open mind. Come with an open mind. And I want to reassert what I said earlier, that even myself, as the Senator for Kiambu, I saw it out there that we have been invited as Mount Kenya leaders. I know that all the other times when I was invited, I went the same way. And when I get there, they have an opportunity and a place for me. They say, okay, go sit there. We know you are the senator, you know, and any views, go and consult with your fellow senators, consult with other people if there are issues you want to be brought here, and choose who will speak on your behalf. And like the last time when you were there, I remember there was a time when Mutahi Kagwe then spoke on our behalf. Even last time, I think there was another time Kembi Getora, when he was the deputy speaker, spoke on behalf of members of the Senate. At the end of the day, all those issues must be condensed, and they must answer to one thing. Where do we want our communities to sit within the other communities, and make sure that our best interests are addressed and they're on top of the on top priority. That's the main thing.
All right. I have to take a quick break here. When we come back, we wind up on these issues on politics, and there's an alliance, a political coalition that's in the offing between Kalonzo Mudavadi, Wetangula, and Gideon Moi. We'll find out what my panelists think about this. But first, let's bring up your feedback before we take that quick break. Bring up and see what you're saying. Gotieno, it says it's upon the youth to decide their fate, whether they still want to be used by politicians to cause chaos in the behest of 100 shillings or be economically viable. All right, let's see. Nation 87 says, Otiende Amolo says that we have to vote yes or no because it is a single bill. That is misleading. Are you saying MPs can pass bills with amendments, but the sovereign people of Kenya have to swallow a bill as it is or leave it? Misleading Kenyans is not okay. Honorable Otiende, do you want to respond to Nation real quick?
Yes, very quickly.
Yeah.
That is the position of this bill, even for us in Parliament.
Yeah.
We are not allowed to amend it. Okay, that is the nature of a bill such as this,
okay,
because it must go to the people as it is. Okay. So even for us, you can only vote for it or not, but even if you vote no,
yeah,
it still goes to the people. So that's really the position. It's not just for parliamentarians, it's for everyone.
Okay, let's bring up the rest of the feedback that we were seeing there and have the full one. Isaac Oenga. Senator Kimani Wamatangi is an articulate intellectual. However, he's having a hard time trying to be neutral when it comes to a multiple choice referendum or a yes or no one. Be honest to yourself and the words will come to you easily. So is it a yes or a no?
Can you accord me the same opportunity to respond like you did? You know, I mean, I have no hard time, absolutely, you know, airing my views because, you know, when it comes on to that question of yes and no, what I try to articulate very clearly, and I would want that viewer to get my approach, is this, that at the end of the day, Trevor, all the issues in that bill may not and will not, if we don't change tact, be what will be on the table for consideration. The point I made is this, that we have already made that bill into a terrible cocktail of what political affiliations people have got right now. That was my point. And so if you go and put that bill on the table, voting at the county assemblies will and may not, in most circumstances, be about the quality and content of that bill. It will be about where do your political alliance or affiliation or following lie. And that was my point. But otherwise, when it comes to a yes and no, applying your mind to that bill, you look at the content, then you will see that the issues about 35%. You see about the issues about increasing members of parliament within particular regions, including in my region. Yeah. And those are issues that, you know, I was the main proponent of the one man, one vote, one shilling debate for the last almost 6 years continuously. It is in that bill. But when I go to Mount Kenya region, nobody asks me, do you have the issues of your one man, one vote, one shilling campaign in there? Nobody asks you that. They'll be asking you, hii bill you're bringing, wewe ni mtu wa Raila ama wewe ni mtu wa Ruto? And that's what I'm saying, that we have to remove that, yeah, and address that bill the way it is. When we address that, we are going to have a very, a very different result and a very different debate, yeah, for that matter. I think that was my point.
Isaac wants to know whether you will vote yes or no.
On the bill? Yes, I'm looking at the bill, and I am most likely on content of the bill to vote yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring up the other feedback, see what you're saying. Sang Kipruto says, why is that the discussion around BBI is majority on 35% versus 15% to counties? Who discusses will talk of other areas like bloated, okay, who will talk of other areas like the bloated executive nomination, more than 100 women and important things like that? Senator Mora, do you want to take a stab at that, the issue of bloated legislative executive?
Yeah, I think that's it, because, you know, at least the three of us have served in Parliament so far, and also we have a speaker. You know, what is the purpose of being in Parliament? I don't think it's just moving around with vehicles and calling yourself a member of Parliament. When I joined the National Assembly, members of Parliament, because of the increase of numbers, some of them didn't have offices. We would be surprised, for the longest, members of the National Assembly actually share their office with their peers. Now, if you increase that 100 women, because you'll have more, actually for me, I estimate 160, even getting 3 minutes in the National Assembly is impossible. Yeah. Senate is a bit quality, Senator Motan can confirm that, because we are few. So let us not just have a bloated parliament for the sake of numbers. I don't know why people are not bold enough, and I've been asking this question when I was coming, Trevor. Yeah. We would have amended Article 81B by making elective positions for women to be progressive, the 2/3, and then the appointee should be, mandatory. I tried pushing for that for people with disabilities in Article 54(2). I was not successful, because that would have been the biggest gain for the hustlers with disabilities, because 5% of all jobs should have been reserved for them, and then the 5%, for elective should have been progressive, so that then you have at least 100 politicians, 2 per each county, 4 in the National Assembly and 2 in the Senate, would have argued the case for disabilities. For women, it would have been like that. But having now nominated people for 15 years, it's three terms. Huh? So it's 20, 22, 27, 32 now, up to 37. Then it lapses. You still end up, of course, there will be other amendments like we have seen before, but you still want to hear people renewing it because you have not amended Article 81B. And people are not bold enough. In fact, I remember talking to drafters saying, "Oh, we fear, these civil rights, people, human rights defenders don't touch on Chapter, 4, on the Bill of Rights." But I think that is a conversation we should have had, so that we have a lean parliament that also gives people quality of representation. If you look at the Senate, it's a house of revision because we do not practice frivolous, vexatious, and capricious motions. Because now that we don't engage in caprice, you want to have quality. You want to have good debate. But then now what we are having, and that is now my take, is that these things can be resolved through multiple questions. So that then whatever people feel they don't want, it goes away. And I think Otieno Amolo said that you'll end up with a mongrel. What you will do in a situation where you have multiple questions, if you prepare and say, if these were to be removed, it affects section so and so, by per consequence, that also goes. For example, the way Article 123 has been repealed by virtue of the fact that now we cannot be voting by delegation. So we'll have a male senator for and a female senator for, or whatever. In America, they call junior and senior, depending on how you served. But I think there is an opportunity, honestly, and we should not lose this moment. Then the other thing is about what I heard Senator Matangi being asked. It's not really that we cannot agree, but when you are having, when you want the people to remove 2022 succession politics and the BBI, which I also confess is a fairly good document so far, then you also don't, block other people from participating. Because by doing so, you are advancing ad hominem arguments. You're actually making it about the person. And the person is political, you see. So I would want to say that it would have been better if everybody was involved. I hope that all of the people who are allied to the Hustler Nation can be invited for the meeting. If not, of course, we are at liberty to issue our divergent opinion. But I believe that President Uhuru Kenyatta would want to leave Mount Kenya region and Kenya at large united and stronger.
Honorable Ome, I would also want you to respond to that same tweet that we just put up. Just bring it up again and talk about one aspect. They were saying that why is it that the discussion is around BBI is just majorly on the 35% versus the 15% to the counties? Have you as MCAs practiced your oversight role satisfactorily from where you stand, even with the current 15% that's there?
Yes, I think we are talking about the monies because we think that development should actually be triggered from the world level. And it cannot happen without sufficient resources at the going to the counties. And that is why we look as if we are even fascinated with that 5% coming to the counties. I would say that oversight is a continuous process. Even Parliament, they are still building capacity. Our National Assembly, our Senate, and even all the parliaments in this world. Capacity will not be concluded that now we are capacitated enough, we are able to discharge our work at 100% without any bloat. But the things that have been done in this constitution that will ensure that oversight is done properly is like now the establishment of the County Assemblies Fund. That independence. That we know that we don't have to rely to the governor. We don't have to be cautious on how we deal with the questions to the governor on the prudent use of public resources. Because we know that we are self-sufficient, we are regulating ourselves conclusively, and therefore there would be no intimidation from whatever source. But also, there is the issue of other intervening issues that need to come in, so that we are also able to play this oversight properly. Like now, Trevor, is that the money is allocated wholesomely in the budget. That there is money for roads in Nyandarua, 100 million. There is money for water, 500 million. But if it is allocated at the ward level, oversight will be very easy. An MCA knows I have 100 million for roads for this ward. this money will go to this road, to this road. To oversight that money is very easy. Okay. But for now, you'll find that what we call irreducible minimums that go to the wards, that is the money that is mostly prudently used, because MCAs know exactly what is coming to their wards and how to oversight it. Okay. But when this global allocation of funds is a very dangerous thing, and I think with the World Development Fund, we are doing away with that, and that we are going to be able to watch over these funds in a more clarified manner. All right, let me finish up with the feedback that's there, then take a quick break and come back and get closing remarks from my panelists here. Engineer Richard Kaino says the entire document is the best for this country. What makes it face rejection is how it is being driven, full of chest thumping and ego. The lead team should be changed and bring sober-minded guys, all right? Let's see what else is there. Gumba Steve says, let's hope they'll come out of the meeting at Sagana with one voice. Otherwise, psychophants must know that with BBI or without BBI, life must continue. Great. Let's take a quick break here on Daybreak. When we come back, I'll take closing remarks from my guests here as we wind up on this discussion. See you in a bit.